Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second part of my book year in review. This time, I'm going to be talking about the second of my favorite books of the year in terms of chronology. This was a late summer read. I picked this up in August. However, of the three books that I'm going to be talking about, this one is actually my favorite. So it's not really just a top three read of 2023. It's most likely a top 10, at least a top 10 read for the entire decade. And the 2020s have been a pretty good reading year. And it is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sifari by Shannon Chakraborty. Shannon Chakraborty. There's a name you should know. This is actually the first in a series, although it does come to a definite conclusion. It does not end on a big question-inspiring cliffhanger, but still, it definitely leaves you wanting more. So, this book, wow. There are a couple of new elements. There are some changes that I've been happy to see in the kinds of things that are being published in the fantasy genre and the kinds of stories that we see cropping up. The first is that we're starting to see more stories that are not traditionally Western inspired. So they're not inspired by Camelot or Middle Earth or England or Ireland or Norway or those kinds of countries, the medieval and Renaissance customs and fashions and all that sort of thing. And that's what we tend to think of when we hear the words fantasy literature. But as you can probably tell from the title, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sifari is inspired more by Middle Eastern fantasy, by the Arabian Nights. And so you get an Arabian Nights type world. So if you're tired of just the old Celtic or Norse inspired stuff, then give this one a try. Another thing that I particularly love about it is that it presents us with a female protagonist who isn't a teenager or even in her 20s. So the young ingenue is not the heroine. Instead, we've got a 40-something mother who is an ex-pirate, and a wealthy and powerful woman approaches her. She's in retirement trying to be a good mom to her daughter Mariana. And this woman approaches her with a request for her to sail in search of her granddaughter, who has taken up with an unsavory character, and to bring her granddaughter home. If she can bring the granddaughter home, she will be rewarded with a sum beyond her wildest imaginings. But if she should say no, if she should say, hey, I don't want to do this, the money would be nice, but it's really not worth it. I gave up this life. I want to stay home with my tween daughter. Then this wealthy and powerful woman swears that if she should do this, if she should refuse, she will totally wreck her life. And it'll be worse for poor Mariana in the long run. So, faced with this crunch, Amina decides, okay, it's time to come out of retirement. It's time to set sail once more with my old crew and find this girl who has supposedly in her youthful enthusiasm thrown in her lot with villains. So, the first half of the book, or maybe the first third of the book, consists of Amina getting the gang back together. So you get to know her old crew, and you get a good look at her relationship with them. And then in the second half, we see them face new dangers as they confront the main villain and try to rescue the young woman from his clutches. And along the way, of course, as you might expect, Amina has to confront her past. But the whole confront the past thing is done so enjoyably and so surprisingly that it doesn't feel at all been there, done that. So Amina Al-Sifari is, I would say, the best female lead character I read about all year. And there are certain specific things that I love about her. First of all, she is a total badass, but she's not invincible. There are times when she's in over her head, and there are times when she needs help, when one of the crew has to come in and snatch her out of danger, or at least help her take down whatever foe she's facing at the moment. However, these moments are balanced with what TV Tropes calls moments of awesome, so that she still feels like a real kick-butt female lead. Just a more realistic kick-butt female lead. And another thing, in hearing the basic scenario of this story, you might get the idea that Amina Al-Sifari is going to be one of those not like other girls heroines, the ones who take pride in the fact that they have not followed a traditional path, that the women who make these more traditional feminine girly choices are fools or brainwashed, the kind of heroine who looks down her nose at other women for making different choices from the ones that she's made. Amina doesn't do this. In fact, whenever the occasion arises and she shares page time with another woman, she will try to bond. She will find common ground. There are some wonderful scenes. They're not very long and they don't take up a lot of page time, but they stood out to me where she is dealing with one of her former crew members, and she's trying to negotiate with him to get him to come back and do this one last mission, even though he really doesn't want to. His wife actually becomes Amina's friend, and they bond really surprisingly quickly, and they admire one another. And I want to see that more often. That's the kind of thing I really like, seeing different women who've taken different paths in life come together as friends and appreciate each other for who they are. Now, to end this review, I want to read this passage because this one clicked with me. This is Amina herself talking. I'm not sure I ever stopped being an Akudha, and that's sea captain, I finally replied. Our hearts may be spoken for by those sweet smiles, sweet eyes, little smiles, and so very many needs. But that does not mean that which makes us us is gone. And I hope, part of me hopes anyway, that in seeing me do this, Mariana knows more is possible. I would not want her to believe that because she was born a girl, she cannot dream. That's one of my favorite statements on motherhood I have ever read in any piece of fiction.